This tutorial is designed to teach you how to create multiple enemies, randomly flying, random timing, random positioning, and then have them move towards a direction on the screen, and it can be adapted to any direction you want. Now, I already designed a spaceship in this, so you can use a rectangle, but it should be a symbol. So I called it enemy ship. The linkage name is what's important. The linkage name is enemies. That's what I'm going to use in code. So right now it says use count is 1, and it's in scene 1. I want to get rid of that one, or it'll be statically sitting there. I'm also going to change my background color to something more space-like. And if I use the color picker like this, I can be more exact and specific. Especially I don't want really bright background colors. I don't want full saturation because I want the attention and focus to remain on my player pieces. So let's move that a little bit more blue. I don't know, I kind of like the purple. Okay, there's my background color. So just to check it out, I can see my spaceship looks just great there. Nice color combinations. All right, so the important thing here again is linkage. And so if I zoom out and I see nothing on my stage, I'm in good shape. Nothing in this keyframe here, it's an empty circle. So I'm going to use this to this frame to put my code in place. So to put my code in place, of course, I'm going to use the Actions panel, F9. There we go. And I'm going to use this to say, let's make some stuff. I'm going to first design my variables, SSW and SSH. SSW, as you will recall, is stage.stage width. So the stage is an object, and the stage width is a property of that object. And it likes to help me write those things by suggesting in that little drop down, the little suggestions panel. Stage.stage, and I can type in H, and this is height, and I go, yeah, that's right, thank you very much. Okay, so now, having designed those variables, let's make a couple other variables. I'm going to do a comment. Vars for speed and timing. And now I'm going to make a function down here. Randomly place enemies, and then another one that we're going to do is move the enemies. Alright, so the variables I'm going to make for speed and timing, I'm kind of guessing here. Variable enemy speed is going to equal, I'm just going to go with 10, and I'm going to say variable enemy interval, and I'm sort of thinking, what can I remember? And I don't want to have too many letters, so I'm going to say int, and I'm going to say 0.015. I don't know. That's like a 1.5% chance per frame that's going to get one. So that's going to bring up a new enemy. So we'll see how that operates later. And the reason I'm using a variable, although I could use a number, is so that as we play the game, we can adjust this variable based on how we're doing, how we're progressing through the levels. So randomly place enemies. Let's build this up. We're going to use a stage.addEventListener, and we're going to use event.enterFrame. And it just suggested that for me. I didn't want that. Enter frame. And we're going to make a function called new enemy. So now function, and here's where I want to make sure, a lot of you guys are making the mistake of mistyping the second one, so you're missing a capital. Kind of odd, but it happens. It's pretty regular and frequent and not unusual. And I'm going to make sure that I'm using this event here. You could type it, but I paste it to demonstrate the connection. Void, no output. Now, what's going to happen here is we're going to use a random number generator. So what that does is says if math.random, and the capitals are very important here, math.random generates a number between 0 and 1. So it's essentially a percentage to multiply stuff by. So if math.random is less than enemy interval, and I, again, copy and paste, and I like to keep all my variables at the top and my functions and listeners down here. So I like to organize my work that way. There's probably a few other approaches, but that's mine. And I'm going to do a curly bracket, and now I've got one left, two lefts, and two rights. There we go. And that contains all my instructions. So if this happens, then we're going to say var enemy, copy of enemy, And I can't remember if it was plural or singular. Enemies, okay. Enemies. And we're going to say new enemies. Just what everybody needs, new enemies, right? And then, so that's just going to put it on as a variable. And then we're going to say add child with a capital C, enemy. And if we do that, it's going to place them on the top. Now, it looks like I made a mistake. What's my error? Compile time constant. Alright, so I made an issue here. If I unhook this, now I'd love to restart my video and redo that part, but I want to make sure that you understand this is kind of what happens sometimes as you make errors. So I'm going to move this someplace I can see the whole thing. There we go. So I'm going to stretch this out. There we go. Enemy. It would appear that I didn't spell, oh, there we go, I missed the S. You may have seen that. So S, enemies. Make sure those match. This and this have to match. So now if I run it, it's running here, and eventually I should see an enemy showing up, but I don't yet. So the question is it making one? So if I want to know if it's making an enemy, let's do this thing. Let's put a trace in here. And the purpose of the trace is to find out, did this trigger or not? Trace, made one. There we go. Put whatever you want in there. And it says made one. So what I can't see is my ship. Now the reason I can't see my ship, it's not making it too frequently here, is because the ship's centering point, registration point, is right there at the tip of the ship. And so what that means is when it gets made, it puts one right here at the top left and it's off stage. So that's fine. I'm going to run with it. And what I do want to change is my frequency of my enemies showing up. So instead of 1.5% the time, let's try a 0.06. Now because we made that trace, we can see this showing up, okay, occasionally. That seems like a good number. Okay, so mess around with that. And what it's going to do is put it on the stage, and we now need to place it randomly on the stage. So where is it going to go? Well, we're going to say, what are we going to say? Let's say enemy.x is going to equal, here's that math random thing again, very useful in math random. It's going to equal math.random times stage.stage width. Now the reason we do that is this gives us a percentage, and this gives us the stage.stage width numbers, coordinates, size, dimensions. And so if I multiply a percentage times a dimension, I'm going to get a random position. Now, because I can't see him showing up for now, and we're not moving him yet, I'm also going to add in an enemy.y, and I'm going to make that worth like 10. 10, just 10, not 110. So I can see him showing up here. So far I got 1. Alright, they're really just terrifying, their frequency of showing up. So I might change that number again. So from enemy interval that was that, I think I went to 0.0. Oh, I see what I did. My caps lock or my number lock was off, so I couldn't type a number on the number key, number pad. There we go. Now I've got some good frequency showing up. So now that they're arriving, we now need to move our enemies. Move thy enemies. Okay, so let me move this down so you can see what I'm doing. And the moving enemies is pretty simple, and what I'm going to use is another add event listener. So stage.add event listener. Not add child, thank you very much. Add event listener. And the listeners of the type event dot enter frame. And this is now going to be called move enemies. So we have add enemies and move enemies. They're separate. So my function is called move enemies. Being careful to type it exactly as I did before. It's an event void. And now moving them. This should be kind of familiar-ish. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? We forgot to make an array to put them in. Totally forgot about that. We taught the heck out of that last class. Let's do this. So we're going to say var enemies, enemy fleet maybe. There we go. Enemy fleet is an array. It's a new array. So now I have this array. When they get created, we need to add them to the fleet. All right. Remind them they're part of a group. So add child enemies. And let's take enemy and add them. So push. No, I got to come up with the name of the array, which was enemy fleet. dot push enemy. So now you're part of the gang, dude. Part of the club, whatever. So now they're in the group. Now we can also add to that as we go, just for fun. We can say not there. Let's put this after the enemy fleet add in there. So we're going to say trace enemy fleet dot length. So how many are in there? And notice that before we traced with quotations to give us a specific string of text, this one wants the values of a variable, so there's no quotations. And now they're saying made one, and it's adding them up. It's saying how many we have, how many we have. All right, so we're going to keep track of how many were showing up at any time, and eventually we'll be removing them. So when we move them, we are going to say for, and this is the for loop, the dreaded for loop. Once you've figured it out, it's not that tough, but initially it's a tough learn. So variable I is an integer class variable, and its value is going to be equal to enemy fleet dot length minus 1. End of that statement. This one gets kind of lengthy. And then we're going to say all values of I which are greater than or equal to 0. So that means it's going to go from the top of the array to the bottom in terms of the index numbers. All right, and we're going to say I minus minus. So iterate down. So we start at the top of the array. If it's 8, it's going to be 8 minus 1 because the index number of the 8th one is 7. It's kind of weird. And then minus I, all values up. And now if we say, okay, let's just have some commands in here to test this, we could just say trace, and this will actually be kind of bizarre, I, and this will be kind of counterproductive because it's doing it a whole bunch at a time. So it's showing me which number it's on and then how many have been made. It's kind of pointless actually. So, but it gives us numbers back. So what we want to do instead of that is we're going to take each one and move it. So enemy fleet brackets I. So we're talking about a specific item in the array by number. And enemy fleet I, we're going to move them, so we're talking about the Y value. And we're going to say, are we going down? We're going down. Down is going to be plus equals enemy speed. I think that's a variable. I should double check. Enemy speed, there it is, I was right. So now, as we move these, now they're flying in and showing up randomly. Random timing, random placement, completely random. Sometimes groups of them and sometimes none at all. So you can mess around with the variables as you see fit to change the intervals, to change the speed, whatever you want. But what we do need to do is say, oh, by the way, we should get rid of them if they go too far off the screen. So if, and I'm going to copy and paste because I'm lazy and I want to get it exactly right. So if enemy fleet I dot Y is greater than stage.stage height, then do this thing which is remove them. So out of sight, out of mind. This is the out of sight part. Remove child. Child, and in parentheses, and I could again take enemy fleet I. Make sure you're aware of what parts you're copying and why you are. Okay, so enemy fleet.I, so it's going to remove it, and then we also need to take it out of the array, which is going to be enemy fleet dot push, which is a command or a method of the enemy fleet, and we're going to remove the I with this one and only one at a time. Now, that number on the second part is pretty weird. So now it's removing them. And as we see the count happening in the output, something went wrong as they're stopping. Now, what that means is somewhere along the line I got my math wrong. So, enemy fleet.length minus 1 is our starting value. For all values of I greater than or equal to 0, I'm pretty sure that's right. Well, I was going to show you what happens if you make that number there more than 1. So, yeah, somewhere something's wrong. Property Y not found. Property Y not found. So somewhere I've got a Y in the wrong place. Property Y not found. Move enemies. So I got looking at this, and turns out I made a mistake in my syntax. So when I removed child, I also pushed the thing back into the fleet. So I essentially made a duplicate of it, or I don't know what happens there, but I did push, and it should be splice. And as you may recall from my lecture, splice removes an object from the array and then connects the pieces on each side of it so that they're reconnected and the numbers reset. So, so now that should work. So now with that splice instead of push, it shows, and what it's doing in the output is it's counting how many are there in the fleet at any given time. All right, so it's kind of working through, and sometimes it does as many as 6, sometimes as few as none, 1. There we go, 1, 2, 3, 4. So look at these numbers over here. It gets kind of interesting. And we're just using a couple trace commands. And once that works, you're good to go. It's only a few lines of code. And let me know if you need guidance. Peace.